Thank you. I guess there's a lot that can be said about this proposal, but my primary concern is how it relates to students. And we've heard from from a number of people today that said, we need to institute this new policy so that we can stop the bullying of our LGBTQ students. And I mean, let me first and foremost say there should not be any bullying, period. I don't know that establishing a policy that inserts a student into the silo of a protected, within this policy, I don't think that's the best way to go. Because yes, we have students who are LGBTQ. Well, let me step back. Take yourselves back to high school. Who are the kids getting bullied? There's a number of variations of characteristics that why students were being bullied. But I can tell you from my high school experience, the silos that are designated here in this policy did not represent a vast majority of the students who were bullied in my high school, nor do they represent the vast majority of students who are bullied today in the high schools. Students are bullied because they wear the wrong clothes. Students are bullied because they talk awkwardly. Students are bullied because they're socially awkward. Students are bullied because they don't feel smart. Students are bullied because they don't play the right sport. Students are bullied because they don't belong to the right club. And I know this because my child was one of these students. He did not fit into any of these protected classes. So are we saying that it's okay for him to be bullied and to be beaten up in class because he is not listed here? I don't think this is the right approach. With full heartfelt empathy, I go out, my heart goes out to the students that are enduring this. My child endured this. My child was suicidal for many years, and he's still battling these demons. I don't think this is the right way to go. I don't think this is the right message that we need to be sending to our students. I want all of our students to feel protected and accepted. I understand the intent of the messaging. I completely understand that, but I think there's a different way that we can approach that. That's my primary concern as it relates to students. I think we need to be very careful in siloing students, and this is a philosophy that I shared with many of you who reached out to me, and I reached out to explain my point of view on this policy. I do have concerns with some of the legal ramifications that Ms. Rose and Mr. Hornberger have brought up and that our attorney have mentioned. I do think it warrants further exploration. I do think we need to do everything in our power to make sure that our students are not being bullied at school. I think we need to do everything in our power, and I implore you to please forward specific concerns. I've heard a lot of concerns about, well, I'm afraid to share things with my colleagues. Well, with all due respect, we can't protect people from being afraid of sharing things. There's a lot of things that I'm afraid to share with colleagues because they may think it's a little odd, or they may not agree with, or their religion may not agree with, or what have you. But we absolutely can protect you against any sort of discrimination that puts your job at risk, that puts your dignity at risk. And so those are the types of things that I want to hear from personally. And I have extended that invitation to any and all of you that have come forward and spoken to me about this concern.
Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was very much interested in Dr. Huff's comment that she didn't recall offhand having any complaints about employees or children coming to her and worried about being discriminated. And I would suggest the reason she didn't have any complaints was because those people are not in a protected class. If you're Irish when you were back in the old days, or if you're Italian in the old days, you were discriminated against. You couldn't do much about those two things. So they made such things as natural origin or ancestry. Those were important because they were obviously pointed out. In this situation, as our culture has evolved to thinking more progressively in many ways, they have accepted a lot of these things that some people are still having difficulty in accepting. And I would say that the reason you never get any complaints from those people is because you haven't put in your policy that they're a protected class. If you have a protected class, you have some legs to stand on. You can complain. You could bring a suit against the school system or some other individuals who are causing you problems because of that particular designation. So I would say let's be look at what happened. We've seen students come here, beautiful students come here, and tell you that they're afraid, they do not feel safe in our school system. And I say to you, that's enough for me. If you don't feel safe in our school system, we've got to do something about it. And if it means just putting a few words in a policy to let you know we care about you, then we should do it. Thank you.
So we're revisiting this again, this issue, which is about rights. It's about individual rights. It's about a lot of individual rights, not just one segment of society. It's about all of society. Teachers protect children. If they don't protect the children, they shouldn't be teachers. Or counselors. Absolutely, unequivocally, that's not who we're hiring. Staff protect teachers. If they're not protecting their teachers, for whatever reason, and Mr. Hornberger pointed out the fact that it's performance-based, that's what we're about here in Loudoun. We're about performance-based. We're not about other issues. We're not about dividing people up. But we're faced right now with rights of some conflicting with the rights of others. And as board members, we have to decide, how are we going to balance those rights? We hear time and time again that people that don't support this policy or that policy are racist or bigots or homophobes, all kinds of names, all kinds of things thrown out at people that you don't know. People in the audience make assumptions about me and other board members, and they have no idea who we are or what's in our heart, but they can do that freely because they disagree with us. And that makes them right, and that makes us wrong, and that makes us prejudice, homophobe, etc. When you use the phrase all blank are blank, you're wrong. You're just dead wrong. I don't classify anybody that way. There is no classification that is true that uses those words. We're all the same. And our kids are supposed to be treated all the same. And when they come up here and tell us stories about how there's a teacher, any teacher, that is ignoring them, that breaks my heart. And that tells me that that teacher, if they're responding to children that way, no matter what the reason is, they shouldn't be in Loudoun and they shouldn't be anywhere in a classroom. One of our speakers said, put it into your policy. It will be the law. But we don't know what the ramifications are. We have no idea what the end state is of this policy and the continuation of the assumptions that are made with this policy. There's the fear that I sense and that I hear about in the community can be considered extreme in some circumstances, but it's not about, you know, creepy people being in a locker room. That is not it. What they fear is that the rights of their children are going to be compromised for the rights of other children. And no parent wants the rights of their child compromised. So when I hear about this policy and I think, taken to the next step, what happens when they go on a DECA field trip and two kids go into one hotel room? Is it going to be now a boy and a girl? Because we got to put our blinders on. Sex is now completely irrelevant. It's removed, and everybody has the same rights. Is a 12-year-old girl who goes into a middle school locker room going to have to worry about the issues that she's dealing with and have boys in that locker room? And I understand that that's not exactly where we are today, but that's where this can lead. And we don't know, because we don't have any legal standing on this, to figure this out. You can't tell me that we know with any certainty what the impact is of starting down this road. But I can tell you that the issues that we're dealing with and that we've identified are the ones that we can solve. And the legislation or the policy changes that we're making are not the solution to the problem. The solution to the problem starts at home and begins with a family telling their children that they need to respect everybody. And that if someone were to come into my house and tell me that one of my children disrespected another child for any reason, there'd be hell to pay. And my kids know that. And they treat people with respect. So we've got problems, and let's not cover our eyes and say racism is gone and doesn't exist. Sexism is gone. Let's not say that, because we know that's not true. We know it's out there. But we're not here trying to solve world hunger. We're here to try to establish a safe environment and to provide that safe environment to our teachers and our children. But let's not be blind to the problems of society. We're here, and later on we're going to talk about an equity committee or a task force, because we have issues, and we can't be blind to that. So let's identify the issues, let's identify the solutions, and let's make sure that they're being implemented so that we can protect all of our students, so that we can protect all of our teachers, not just one group or another. This isn't born of hate. That's not what this whole discussion is about. I don't think anybody in this discussion hates somebody. I know that there's fear. There's fear on both sides of the discussion. But I also know that people generally take care and respect other people, and that children can be vicious for any reason. Whether it's not being able to pronounce your R's, which is the way I grew up. And the teasing I got and the abuse I got mostly was my brothers and sisters, because I was the youngest. But everybody has a cross to bear, and some it's much more difficult, because society right now makes it harder on some students over others, but not in the schools, not in our environment. We're here to protect the children, and we're here to protect the teachers. And I think that's what we need to focus on. And I don't believe we know the ramifications of this, and I don't understand where we're headed if we implement this and we continue down the road that turns society into an asexual society. There are big cultural challenges that we're facing. Ms. Sheridan.